What's going on, people, and welcome to the LV Live Rant Show. Thank you for coming to my page. Please, if you can, hit the like and subscribe button. Also, too, I have my Blue Steel podcast show on me and my boy Jeff. If you can, go check it out. It's called Blue Steel Show. Check it out. We have a lot of great shows on there regarding sports and all those other great things that, I love to talk about as well. But yeah, so thanks for coming to my channel. And the rant today is going to be about the big fight coming up in a month from now, basically. Errol Spence and Mikey Garcia. I've been hearing a lot of things. I've been watching a lot of videos. I've been seeing a lot of different things going around about how this is it's going to be a pretty good fight. Mikey sees something in Spence. I don't know what people see. I don't know what people are listening to. But I don't think he sees anything in Errol Spence. I love Mikey Garcia. I think he's a great fighter. But I think that this is a dangerous fight for Mikey, a super dangerous. And Mikey can really get hurt in this fight. Really get hurt. I think what people don't understand and people don't realize, I think they do, but they just want to kind of, see a good fight. I think Mikey has the skills. But he's in there with a guy who's looked at as possibly being the next big star in boxing, and who is reaching he's reaching close to the top of the mountaintop. He just needs a shot at the titles, which he already has the IBF, but he needs a shot to unify, and so you could see him on the biggest stage. And of course, he's been known as the boogeyman because a lot of guys don't want to fight him because they see what everybody else sees, that he's a dangerous fighter. He's to me, when I see Errol Spence, he's the closest thing to me that I've seen to the great, marvelous Marvin Hagler. He's very, very similar to Hagler. Hagler had a great jab. He had a great body work. But what Hagler was, is Hagler was relentless. Relentless. He would not stop coming. And it took a sledgehammer to keep him off you. And that's who Spence is. I think we kind of don't look at that. Some people may not look at that with Spence because Spence doesn't look like Hagler. Spence has more of a Sugar Ray look, clean cut, good looking guy, well spoken from the South, has that Southern hospitality drawl to him, presents well. But when he gets in that square circle, he's a monster, man. And I think that what people don't I keep on saying what people don't understand because I'm just hearing a lot of people just saying so many different things. To me, this is a no-brainer. I think that, you want to sell the fight because you want it to get sold and you want the pay-per-view people to buy the fight because you want them to feel like there's some type of hope that Mikey could win this fight. I don't think it's going to be close. I think Mikey's going to, hit him with a couple of shots here and there, but I think that Spence is too strong. And he's too relentless. Spence, in order to keep Spence off of you, you got to be able to hit him with a shot that makes him think twice about going in there and going to the body. But with Spence, similar to Hagler, you may think you're hitting him with a shot, but he may block it with his glove, or he may know how to maneuver or roll with the punch. And then before you know it, he's on your body. And the thing with Spence is that it's not the second or third or fourth round where he's like amazing. He catches you the 7th, 8th, and 9th round. Those are his championship rounds because what he does is he's wearing on you. You think you're winning the fight, but he done hit you with shots to the kidney, to the ribs, to the jaw, to your arms. Maybe a couple of low blows if the ref catches it or not. A couple of 1-2s. And then he's leaning on you. Then he's clinching. And then you're starting to feel the strength and the weight of them power shots that Spence is laying on you. And by the 7th, 8th, and 9th round, you're through. Your legs are finished. And that's when he comes, and that's when he's moving forward. And that's when you're saying to yourself, this guy is, there's no end. There's no stop to what he's doing. He's constantly coming forward. It's the 7th or 8th round, and I just can't get him off me. and your legs buckle and you drop. I've seen him do that to so many different fighters, and I think that Mikey's just too small, man. Mikey's just too small because you figure when he rehydrates and he comes into the fight, if I'm he's gonna come in, he's gonna weigh in at 147, probably 146 and a half. But when he rehydrates, he may come into the fight maybe 158, maybe 160. Mikey may be about 150. But if he's not used to fighting a 12-round fight at 150 pounds, 150, that's he's not gonna have the oxygen to be able to get through those later the championship rounds, which is 7, 8, 9, and 10. Those are the championship rounds because that's when you really start to kick in. Some guys take their foot off the gas. Some guys put their foot on the gas, and that's what Spence does. The only person who I can see beating the Errol Spence, honestly, my opinion, is a slick type of fighter. You got to be Floyd Mayweather type of fighter. Like, you have to be. And if you think about it, if you go back in history, that's the guy that beat Hagler, and that was Sugar Ray Leonard. Because he understood to be in and out, to not really sit in there and exchange with Hagler. Jabs, 1-2s, and get up out of there and get on his bike. He was on his bike all night when he fought Hagler. And that was Hagler's biggest beef. If people remember, Hagler was upset about the fact that, Sugar Ray was on his bike the whole night. He was running. But Sugar Ray fought a smart fight. He knew, I'm not getting in the exchange with him. And even still, with that fight, it was close because Hagler was getting his punches in because Hagler, once again, being who he is, he's relentless. That's why I think the closest person to possibly beating Spence maybe is Terrence Crawford. But Crawford's problem is not his problem because it's actually a great attribute that he has. He's a dog in there. He's an angry man in that ring, and that's what makes Terrence Crawford great. But that greatness that he has is a danger when he fights Errol Spence. You got to be in and out. You got to be like Floyd. You got to throw jabs. You got to be in and out. You got to be defensive and score on points. That's the way you got to beat Errol Spence. Floyd didn't have a problem winning it, doing something like that because his thing was like, I'm getting a W, period. In and out. It could be boring all you want, but this is the art of boxing. The art of boxing is to hit and not be hit. It's called the sweet science for reasons, and that's what you got to do to beat Errol Spence. Period, end of story. But Terrence Crawford has too much dog in him, man. Like I said, it's going to get to a point where Terrence Crawford is going to want to exchange with Spence. And he's going to want to kind of go toe-to-toe and throw his punches, and that's danger zone. Because once Spence feels like you, and that's when Spence is going to start laying on you. And I think that he most likely going to wind up stopping Terrence Crawford because of that. He won't stop Crawford early because Crawford's too slick of a fighter. But I think he'll catch Crawford probably about 9th or 10th. I don't know if he'll KO Crawford. If he does, I won't be shocked. But he'll drop him. He'll drop him, and that'll be the fight. Because then, he'll win on points eventually when he gets to the 12th round. But that's just what I see it. But going back to the original topic, I mean, I don't know what Mikey and his team was thinking. But actually, I'm going to say his team because if I'm correct, the father and the brother were trying to get Mikey not to take the fight. Because they knew what type of monster that they're going in the ring against. And I think that Mikey was adamant about doing it, which is great. I mean, you can't knock him for being a champion. I mean, he's a fighter. That's what fighters want to do. They want to go against the best. And he felt like, if I'm beating these guys at 135, 140, then why not take it to the bigger man and fight a guy like Errol Spence at 147. The only problem I have is I think Mikey should have took another fight at 147. He should have took a fight like maybe let me think. Maybe a Danny Garcia, but I think Danny Garcia gives Mikey problems too. So I don't know like an easy. I mean, you could say a John Molina, but John Molina's like a 140 guy. He fights at 147, but I'm trying to think of a legit 147 guy that he could have fought. I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of guys up there. I mean, he could have fought. But I think the top tier guys kind of give Mikey a problem still. I think Thurman stops Mikey. Thurman Thurman throws haymakers, man. I mean, so I mean, that's a different topic for another day. But I just think Mikey should have took a couple of tune-ups at 147 before he took on someone like Spence. He's got to get used to what 147 is, and if he doesn't hurt Spence, then as Spence said in one of his, I heard him on one of the shows that he was someone was recording him, and he was stating, and I think it was a Lamar Peterson fight. He said, once the punches don't hurt, then it's all offensive for me. And if that's the case, and if that happens, it's going to be a long night for Mikey Garcia. And it's going to be actually not a long night. It's going to be a short night for Mikey Garcia. So I don't know. I mean, we'll see what happens, but I think this is easy. I don't think it's hard. I know a lot of people trying to sell the fight, and like I said earlier, and trying to kind of get people to buy the pay-per-views, and I get it because that's how you should do. But I think this is easy to score. This is a no-brainer. Spence easy, and I think Spence stops him like in the 7th round, and I think that maybe even 6th. It's just too much. Spence's pressure and his relentless to keep coming forward is just I'm telling you, to me, it's the best to me since Hagler. Like I said earlier. Because I think that when you look at what he does for a fighter, to me, who I think is a really good fighter, is Kell Brook. People try to dismiss it because Triple G hurt Kell Brook's eye. Yeah, I get that, but Kell Brook is still a good fighter, and he's a big 147. Spence was having a hard time with him because he's a big 147. But once again, that Hagler skill set of continuing to come forward and being relentless, regardless of who's in there, is what his greatest attribute is. And that's what he did to Kell Brook, because Kell Brook was hitting him with shots, but Kell Brook was like, this guy, he's not stopping. He's continuing to come. Even with Kell Brook being just as big as Spence, just as strong as Spence, at 147, he could not keep Spence off of him. He could not. And that's the key with Spence. You got to keep him off you. But I just think the type of fighter he is, it's really hard to do that. Because if you remember, even going back once again to Hagler, the biggest puncher back then was, everybody know, the Hitman Hearns. And when they fought Hagler and Hearns, which was, as everyone knows, the greatest 3 rounds ever in boxing, as hard as Hearns hits, he could not keep Hagler off him. He couldn't. And if you remember that fight, Hagler had a big gash in the middle of his head, I think from a punch or a headbutt or something. And he still didn't stop. He kept coming. He wouldn't stop. And Hearns couldn't keep him off him, even with that right hand. And that is Errol Spence. And that's what separates him from the rest of these cats. And that's why a lot of people feel that he is going to be soon, top of the pound for pound rankings and be a pay-per-view star and be the king of 147. Because I do see him eventually maybe going up to 154, but I mean, if he's going to make all this money at 147, being a pay-per-view star like Floyd, and 154, 147, maybe fluctuate back and forth, I don't really see him going to 160 in middleweight. I don't see him doing that. Because if he's making all this money, why is he going to do that? I just see him staying where he's at and, becoming, like I said, a pay-per-view star and the #1 attraction in boxing. But that's my rant for today, people. Thank you for coming to my page and checking out my rant. Once again, I'm going to try to get back to doing these once a week. But please please check out my other show, Blue Steel Podcast Show, or the Blue Steel Show, with me and my boy Jeff. We do it every week, talking about all the latest news and sports, and it's just something that we're passionate about and we love doing. But yeah, just hit the like, subscribe, bell icon. I would truly appreciate it, and thanks for coming to my page.